Greg, Islam is a religion, but Islamism is a political ideology like communism. Islamism talks about how courts should operate, how Islam should be part of political policy, etc. The reason there isn't a lot of Christianism, except for the Lord's Liberation Army. I mean, footnote there, in my opinion, is that Christianity's main texts were written by a powerless sect, so they spread by using words. After Muhammad was rejected by Jews, he went on to conquer by the sword. So the second part of the Quran makes it harder to ignore because many Islamists use them to justify various policies that lead to Islamic states.
All right. I just got to say...
Let me just finish.
Oh.
Not ISIS, but almost all states with an official religion today are Islamic. Of course, the upshot shouldn't be you guys are bad, but I think comparisons to communism are warranted. Our own mind virus/ideology is Western liberalism, and we also kill in its name. What you see is Western liberal states assuming everyone will eventually adopt their views, and in fact, people in Russia, China, and many Islamic states do not.
Okay, first of all, every religious text is used in a variety of ways to justify a variety of things. Now, look.
I mean, Christianity doesn't do that, Michael. I mean, just don't think of the Lord's Liberation
Army. It's not just words. And other
don't pay
parts
attention to what goes on to the LGBT community in like countries like Uganda. Don't pay attention to that stuff, Michael.
Well, and actually, I the name is escaping me right now, unfortunately. But there's another country in Western Africa, not Western Africa, Central Africa, I believe, where there's a mass slaughters of Muslims by Christians. But beyond that point, you could never, like, if you were, and look, I will grant you that in the three Western religious texts, Judaism, Bible, Torah, Quran, there's material there that can be used in some pretty dangerous ways. And there's material in every text that can be used in dangerous ways. Now, even a really herbivorous one like Buddhism. But look, if you wanted to write a paper, take Islam out of it. If you wanted to say right now in Burma, there are Buddhist ultranationalists that are slaughtering Muslims. Now, if you wanted to understand what was happening in Burma and you were in an academic environment, not just like IMing our show, and you said to your professor, I want to write a sociological paper or a historical paper or a political paper or anything on these Burmese monks and these human rights atrocities, and I'm going to do it by reading a couple of, a biography of the Buddha, you would not be taken seriously. Like, this is just not how things work. And yes, there is an Islamic politics. There is an Islamic ideology. It has many, many different variants. You say, Pakistan as an Islamic state in terms of its founding is entirely different than Iran, is entirely different than Saudi Arabia, and is entirely different from many other Islamic states, which are quote unquote Islamic in the same way some European states are really, are quote unquote still Christian. You gotta look at actual context and history, and it is not. I mean, you could even say it's analogous to communism in one sense, in that there was many different varieties that arose in a variety of different contexts. But if you're going to try to make it like the Soviet Union, it's delusional, and you're not going to get anywhere.
I mean, just look at how Christianity tries to, the version of Christianity distorted by members of certain parties, what they try to push into the laws here in this country. I mean...
No, I just wouldn't... Religion is going to manifest in many, many, many different ways. And to the extent that there are challenges within Islam today, it's like not you're not helping anybody. And neither, and certainly obviously like Sam Harris isn't.
Breitbart takes a tumble. What the fuck was that garbage about Islamism? Does he know that the Roman Empire adopted Christianity, or the Holy Roman Empire? Exactly.
Yeah.
The Papal States, the entire fucking history of Protestant Catholic war throughout all of Europe. Jesus shit, what kind of stupid shit was that? Well, he has a very myopic view of what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. And also, again,
It's that simple. I mean, there's no further to put. There's nothing more to say
and
about
for what
that.
it's worth, I wouldn't say you could really understand the history of the Roman Empire or Protestant and Catholic fighting purely through the lens of religion. In fact, that's mostly an after effect of political, economic, the real stuff that mostly drives things.
Well, that's because like how today with Islam and politics in certain countries, that's how it was during the Roman Empire. In the Roman Empire, religion and politics were intertwined. There was no you could not separate them.
You couldn't make a distinction. That's exactly that's such an important point.
That's the point. Like that's literally.
And the other thing that's just really important to mention, the last thing is that in many of these countries, not Saudi Arabia, but in many of these countries where there has been a resurgence in popularity of Islamic-inspired politics is after the failures of the post-colonialist, socialist, and nationalist parties. So that stuff became popular after a very long period where religion was relatively unimportant in these cultures in terms of politics, not in terms of people's religious lives. So again, you got to read some history, man. You got to look.